our world viewed from our scale.
Oh, I see.
But that there's actually further divisions and that there are possibilities. And actually there's data that just came out last week from Hubble telescope pictures that starts to debate the validity of that limit being the end. There's evidence that actually there might be resolution past the Planck's limit.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
So look it up. It just came out last few weeks.
That makes a lot of sense, then. And my other question is, are you familiar with Roger Penrose's ideas about the connection between quantum mechanics and consciousness through quantum coherence taking place in the microtubules in living cells? And if you know about this, what do you think about it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think Penrose did a wonderful work in there in that field with the microtubules and the relationship to the twistor algebra. And actually, much of what he did is very compatible with what I did. And if you go to my website on the research link, you'll find papers about that. One that was published, a year or so ago, and
really? I mean, on that subject?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Well, on the subject of the solution to my equation having a relationship with the different algebras, and not directly the microtubule and the relationship to consciousness, but certainly in the relationship between these algebras. Now, interestingly, in one of my papers, I show a scaling law, and that scaling law has a relationship between the frequency of systems and their size, their radius, and I plot on it from the Planck's distance, from extremely small to the universal size, and I plot all the objects in between, and they line up nicely along a gradual expansion line. And interestingly, when you take the microtubule, their size and their frequency, and you plot them on there, they bisect that line between the Planck's distance, billions of times smaller than the atom, and the universal size, like almost in the middle. So it's like biology is like the connection between the two. It's kind of almost perfectly in the middle between the two. So I think that's very interesting. It's we're part of that network of information between the large and the small.
Next up, we go to Phoenix, Arizona, west of the Rockies. Keith, it's your turn.
Hey there, George. Nice talking to you again.
Thanks, Keith.
A very nice show. I was just wondering, is that dark matter, is it the explanation for the weight of the universe?
The dark matter and dark energy, well, dark matter certainly is because when you look at galaxies, and you look at the way they behave, there's a whole bunch of mass missing for it to behave that way relative to the way the equation should have it behave.
Has anyone thought about life being that mass?
About life?
Yes, like human beings on other planets or beings on other planets being that mass that's missing?
Unless they were very massive beings.
If you have trillions upon trillions upon trillions of these smaller beings, wouldn't they equal some sort of mass?
Well, even if they were pretty massive beings, like if they ate a lot of fast food, relative to the mass of a galaxy, it would be trivial. But what I'm saying is that actually, this feedback from the vacuum, this vacuum energy, this fundamental superfluid, superconductive structure we call space, is actually the source of that energy.
I have one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
I was just wondering what your thought would be on life existing, other than in a flesh form, more in a maybe metallic form, say Mercury for blood, water is mercury, just a different structure, but
different life
still,
form. Yeah.
different life form, but still being able to exist with just different forms of metal per se, other than this flesh structure.
Right, meaning like on other planets and so on?
Yeah, I was just wondering if life could if you think life could exist maybe in a
completely different form?
Completely different structure.
Or would it have to look exactly like us?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I believe that life can exist in many different forms because if this vacuum structure is the source of all the information, and it self-organizes, it always uses the same function at all the scales, but it will manifest differently depending on the local environment so that it can survive even. And, we keep finding that. We keep going to new places like deep, deep in the ocean and so on and finding life there where we thought life could not exist because nature is able to do things, organize systems so that it can produce life in many different ways that surprises us. And it's almost like a Darwinian evolutional theory of the physics of creation. It takes the concept that systems adapt to their local environment and brings it to the physics of the universe. And so, I believe that life probably emerges in many different ways. And so depending if a planet has oxygen and nitrogen and what the quantities of these gases are, or if it's completely different, maybe you have beings that can breed completely different things. If you look even at our earlier evolution, when we were monocellular system, oxygen was the pollutant of the day, and we almost got wiped out. There was almost extinction on our planet because we were producing way too much oxygen, and all the monocellular systems were dying until they were in competition, until they started to collaborate and produce a multicellular system that eventually could breed oxygen, and then all of a sudden it flourished again. And I think, in one way, our civilization is learning that lesson, how to collaborate.
Let's go next to Toronto, Canada on the international line. Steve, hi.
Hey, how's it going, George?
Good.
My question, well, actually I have two. One of them is what the guest's thoughts are on the problem of evil in our world. And the other one is regarding viruses. What he thought of the theory that because viruses aren't actually alive, and if you look at them like a picture of a virus under a very powerful microscope, that they actually look like little machines. So I wondered what he thought about the theory that viruses could actually be nanotechnology from a previous civilization of Earth. And I'll take my answer off the air. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, those are interesting questions. About evil, I fundamentally don't believe in evil. I believe that there's just confusion. There's just, there's so much that a being has to overcome when they come in our world. Our world has a tendency to be quite violent. I mean, even the first few minutes of birth in our modern civilization, if a child is birthed in a hospital, can be quite traumatic, and all the environmental issues we're facing and all this stuff and the difficulties that a being can undergo very early in their childhood in our society. I think that's what produces what we call evil. I don't believe that children are born fundamentally evil, but that actually it's a product of our confusion and our level of society. And I think hopefully that will change in the near future. That is very very much improving now. You know, so I think there's just different levels, different gradients of awareness, and that's what makes up